Woohoo! We're live streaming successfully to Athens, Georgia. That's exciting and awesome. All right, here we are. Episode 54 of the Georgie and Patty Show.
Wow.
I am Georgie.
And I'm Patty.
And we are here to share some more awesome entrepreneurial marketing, sales, build your business, grow your mind kind of things today. Right? Like that one? Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yes. And my quote of the day today, if I can find it here, is from Helen Keller. So, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. And I thought that might be a little bit fitting as you go through your presentation on, how do we handle kind of the dips and the valleys of being an entrepreneur and building this, purpose-based business, wanting to make a difference, wanting to make an impact, wanting to make a living, create some cash to, have this life that we want. So just, I think, remembering and recognizing that often it doesn't come, it's not just green lights and easy sailing all the time. And sometimes we wake up and we don't want to do it, or we don't really feel like we can do it. So please tell us, how do we handle the dips?
I don't know if I'm going to make it better or worse. We're going to find out.
You get the avocados. You make some guacamole and you have a few margaritas. Okay, check.
Excellent.
And a sombrero. Somehow it needs a sombrero.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
I have slides.
Yeah.
It's so interesting when we were putting together the episodes for this week. It's like, oh, we've got a theme, don't we?
It's like we planned it.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned it. Anyhow, so we're going to do a little bit of this Motivation Monday meets We Read It So You Don't Have To, because a lot of what I'm going to share today comes from Seth Godin's book, The Dip. And once again, a little bit like when we talked about Stephen Pressfield's book a couple of weeks ago, it's okay if this is not your thing. And the intention behind this presentation is to be motivating, not discouraging. And that's almost like a warning. A little bit of a heads up about this content. There's some, I know when I look at this, this particular perspective, I have this kind of, feels really motivating sometimes, and other times it's like, it's discouraging as hell. So that's kind of my reaction to it. So let's see how it grabs you. I'd love to hear your comments, your questions, what you think about this concept that I'm going to share. Not my concept, comes from Seth Godin. And this book is really intended to answer that question, should I stick with it or should I quit? And I don't think anybody has ever approached this entrepreneurial journey without asking that a few times, many times, several times a day in some cases. But this idea of things get hard, and we come up against these moments where we're like, do I stick with it or do I quit? And Seth Godin has some really interesting perspectives on this particular question in this book. One of the quotes that I grabbed here is that almost everything in life worth doing is controlled by the dip. And I know we talked about this a few episodes ago, about this idea that sometimes it is the fact that the journey is grueling that makes the endpoint so worthwhile, that shortcuts aren't fulfilling, especially when you're doing the work that really matters to you. So there's this the sense that this dip is a good thing to be going through. It's part of what makes things worthwhile. And there's also very, very much this idea of choice, because as we will see, going through the dip takes time and effort and energy. And our reality is that we have limited amounts of all of those things, and we need to choose. There's really no such thing as truly going into the dip for multiple things. And this, if you happen to be a scanner in Barbara Scher's language, is not what you want to hear. So let's talk about this dip thing. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but now that I tell you, you're going to see it all over the place. We tend to celebrate both ends of the journey. We have this, you know, the best time to start was 20 years ago. The next best time to start is today. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. There's a lot of raw encouragement about getting started, making a decision, moving forward, creating a plan, getting set off on your journey. Day one, minute one, woohoo, let's go. We talked about the beginning. There's a lot of excitement around the beginning. There's a ton of excitement around the end, crossing the finish line. We celebrate people who win Olympic medals and win awards and complete marathons and climb mountains and push themselves to the edge. We celebrate business success heroes that have made it, that have made a difference. So we talk about these two ends. The part we don't talk about is the part in the middle. It's the, you know, after the first step. It's all the other steps between, you know, step one and step end of 1,000 miles, however many steps that is. We don't talk about those middle steps. And when you watch movies about this that are really inspiring, they talk about that middle journey and they condense it down into this like montage of little clips of Rocky training and about drinking his eggs in his blender and stuff like that. And they kind of condense it into this fast forward montage with the funky music going on in the background. That's the middle part. We don't talk a lot about what it looks like in the grueling middle. And that's the reality, is that, yeah, it's exciting to get started. It's awesome to think about the end, but what about this shit in the middle? Which is, you know, hey, another Monday morning, back at my desk kind of experience. What happens in the middle? And as Seth Godin describes it, it's the long slog between starting and mastery. We look at Malcolm Gladwell talk about 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. We talk about what it takes to start a business and really get it off the ground and get going. And we're talking months, we're talking years. We are not talking overnight. So there is this long slog in between starting and finishing. And that's the dip. And I like this, where he says that long slog is actually the shortcut, because it gets you where you want to go faster than any other path. This is so true if you've ever tried taking shortcuts that ended up being diversions. And we kind of fall off that path and we go around in a circle, and it's all because we want to avoid the hard work of going straight through the dip. So it's kind of like this, the shortest path between point A and point B is a straight line, right? And then it's like that straight line goes through the dip. And we hear, this is kind of a popular message that we get about don't quit. And so far, this is really sounding like, oh, there's a dip. There's a long, grueling path between starting and mastery, and the key is to not quit. And as my partner would say, and. So what's really interesting about this particular book is that it is both advice not to quit and advice to quit. So the trick is to know when to make which choice, because quitting is often a really good decision. It's not a good decision if you're in the dip for what matters to you, but it's a great decision if you're on the wrong path. So the key is figuring out when to do what. So it's really, do you keep going or do you quit? Comes right back to the question that we started this whole presentation with. So how would one decide? This is what Seth has to say about when to quit, and this is where you can remind yourself of the permission slip. If you're at a dead end, if there is no dip, if you're pursuing something that no longer matters, if there's not a way for you to succeed, he talks about this a lot in terms of a career. That you're at a dead end with your particular career or the particular company that you're with, that there isn't really a way out of that dip. It's like you're there, you're at the end, this is it, there's no moving ahead, there's no going forward, you are actually trapped. In that case, it's a really good idea to quit. Might mean you have to go somewhere else, it might mean you need to pursue another career or another angle, but if there is no dip, there is no dip to go through. Dead ends. And when you can't be exceptional, and this is really from Seth's perspective, this is the quit, don't quit. Quit the stuff that you can't be exceptional at and pursue the stuff that you can. So if you find, as he says, if you find yourself in the dip and being average, that is a signal to quit. It's not the thing for you, because your dip will be the place where you can be exceptional. And he's not a fan of average because he says average is for losers, which is a very strong statement. However, when we look at the reality of who, quote unquote, wins at business, in sports, in music, in anything, it tends to be the people who are exceptional. And that exceptional comes from a blend of talent and skill and hard work and perseverance. People can have talent for something, but without the hard work, most people are not able to be exceptional and to use that talent for anything. So the trick is to figure out, what can you be exceptional at? And this is, I love this particular perspective, because this is so true, is that the dip creates scarcity, and scarcity is valuable. And what he means about this is that most people are not willing to go through the dip. Most people quit. Most people don't want to do the work that it takes. They don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the effort. They want to skate by. They want a shortcut. They'll give up. They'll phone it in, that kind of thing. So the willingness to go through the dip, we talk about in business, you may have heard the term barrier to entry. The dip is a barrier to entry. It keeps the competitors away, in a way, because it's difficult to compete. So the dip creates that scarcity, and the scarcity is what makes it valuable. So if you're average, if you're a commodity, there's not a lot of scarcity. It just means that there are a lot of you willing to do this. You want to go look at freelancers on Upwork or Fiverr or something like that. There's a zillion of them. They're average or below average. They're not scarce at all. They're not valuable. There's not a lot of, they're not asking for a lot of money. However, when you look at the people who are the absolute best in their industry, there's not very many of them. They're there because they went through all of the hard work. They got the extra education. They went the extra mile. They put in more time and effort. They might have had some skill coming in, some talent coming in, and they're a scarce commodity, and they make lots of money. So that scarcity is valuable. It's a little like, I was in real estate years and years and years ago, and they joked that it was the top realtors on the pyramid that made all the money, like the top 5% made 95% of the money, kind of thing. And it's just, and that top 5%, they lived and breathed real estate. They did all of the things. They hired coaching, they paid for advertising, they invested, they went all in, they committed, and they became the absolute best at selling real estate, and they went to the top. And it's just, that's what made them more valuable. When they were at the top, it became easier for them to get more clients, customers, to get more people listing their houses with them. That's what happened. Is that the dip, the willingness to do that, to do the hard work, does land them at the top. But it takes a long time. I watched a fellow go from starting off right to the top of the charts. It probably took him 7 years of full on effort, going through the dip, where putting in the effort and not getting any results, and just having that faith and that belief and that tenacity to keep going, even when it didn't look very, very positive. He was just so committed to making his way through it, and that's what creates that scarcity, and that's what is very valuable. So the question to ask when you're looking at whatever it is that you're doing is, can you be the best in the world? And this is that question around being exceptional, right? Now, here's the thing about this, is that you get to define what world means. So we are in this situation right now, this opportunity, where you can be the best in the world at a very teeny tiny, well-defined, carved out niche of people that you serve or service that you offer, constrained geographically. Best in the world for you might be best in your city, best in your region. So it could be geographically, it could be the absolute best at serving this particular group of clients, at solving this particular group of problems, right? It's like the world is in some ways larger and smaller. There's more opportunity. You can reach people around the globe via the internet, and there you can really get specialized and customized, right? So this is the part that is exciting if you look at it in that way. It's like you can be the best in the world that you define, right? So, and the best, you also get to define what best means, right? So this is about using your talents, your personality, your skill, your experience, all of that. Like, you're the best in the world of being you, and delivering all of the stuff that you have accumulated over time. And this is why when we talk about this idea of doing your life's work, that knowing what your purpose is, being clear about your why and why you're here and what you want to do. And we talk about this idea of falling in love with what you do, falling in love with the process, is that you get to choose your dip. It's going to be hard work, and it's going to take a lot of effort, but that can also be really joyful work if you enjoy what you're doing. Like, we often think about the dip as being like this really horrible, hard work, kind of grueling thing, but it can also be, how do I describe this? It's fulfilling. It can be really fulfilling. It can be the kind of hard work where at the end of the day you feel great about doing it because it's your thing. We talked about this from Stephen Pressfield's book, about this idea when you're doing the work that you're here to do, that it feels good. Even if it's a bad day at work, doing the thing that you're here to do, the thing that you love, can be an awesome thing. So this is the kind of final observation from this book, is the advice to use the dip as an opportunity to create something so extraordinary that people can't help but talk about it, recommend it, and choose it. And choosing that path kind of mindfully. So there you have it. There is some thoughts on the dip. Love to hear what you have to say about that.
So cool. Any questions, thoughts from our audience about the dip?
Inspiring, yes, no, discouraging. I'm curious about how you read it. I'm kind of on the fence myself. I'd like to. Inspiring, excellent.
Yes. Nice. Nice. I think it just brings a whole new perspective. Intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It's one of these. I found it inspiring. You pointed out you can define best and define world. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the. I think that's kind of the answer here. Is to figure out what your thing is, and it's actually a really interesting question to ask. Is this something I can be exceptional at, or is this something that I'm just kind of phoning it in? I'm going to be average at this thing.
Exactly. It allows you really to do a lot, I think, of kind of self-inquiry. Like really, if you are in that dip, in that space, and you can look at, what can I be, according to my definition, best in the world at? What can I be exceptional at? Why did I even get into this in the first place? Was it something I wanted to do? Was it because someone told me I'd be really great at it? Did it seem just like, the path of least resistance? Like, I think all of these things can come up when you're in that kind of dip space. So good. Seth Godin's books make me go, the dip is now added to my must-read list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing from there is this idea of, if you're actually in your dip, do not quit.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. It's really bad to quit when you're in your actual dip.
Yes.
And it can also, just my own personal experience of that is that it's like a valley. It's like you're in a ditch, and it's like when you're down in that dip, it can be really hard to see the end, because what you see is the rise up, that steep slope you got to go up. You don't see the finish line so clearly. It's a long ways away. And that can be an uncomfortable, not happy place to be in. So the trick is to keep on going there. And he's basically saying that the question to ask is that end thing that you're going for, is it worth the work that it's going to take to get there? And it's just like, for those of us who have a calling, or as a man said, a screaming, there's not even a lot of choice in it. It's just like, here I am, doing my thing. Keep on doing my thing.
Just keep on doing it, right? It's that commitment to that higher vision, that higher calling, that higher purpose, whatever it is. And it's like, okay, I'm actually willing to do whatever it takes to get there. I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm committed to that, knowing that it's not going to be easy, that there will be days that it's going to suck and I might want to quit. And what's that saying? Never quit on a bad day. You can only quit on a good day, never on a bad day.
That's very much become part of my personal philosophy. It's like, when I recognize that I'm in that dark kind of dippy place, I'm like, okay, I'm going to continue on with the plan that my more enthusiastic former self came up with. Don't make a decision on it. Don't make a decision on a bad day. Just kind of keep on keeping on, and wait until I'm back in that place to look at the decisions.
Exactly.
Which also sounds kind of easy to do, and in practice is very difficult.
Exactly. It can be very, very challenging. Very challenging. When it's just like, I want to throw in the towel, I'm going to do it now. It's like, no, wait, I have to wait till I'm having a good day. Then I can revisit this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Great. Yeah, oh, we have some more comments here. I missed one. I have to go back up. What you described made so much sense and was very encouraging. I'm definitely in a dip right now, and you gave me new ways to think about it. Yes, I'm in a not happy place with the dip, but it really helped to have some light shined onto it. Yeah. Yes, it brings out a very inspiring point. I'm just repeating what you said, but I think some of us want to quit when you are in a dip. However, the dip creates scarcity. So once you overcome your dips, you'll be very competitive.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And there's so much learning that happens there. You know, so much learning, so much growth happens, I think way more in when you're in that dip space than top of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's see what else. I try to tell myself that the worse I feel, the nicer I need to be with myself, especially to be more patient with myself. Absolutely.
Patience was my reflection this morning as I was journaling about this subject, and also because this dip thing is really real. It's like I'm feeling it myself right now. So if you are also in that dip place, know that I am too. You're not alone. And what I realized is that my impatience of wanting to progress faster was part of what was not part of was what was making this feel way worse than it actually is. It's like when I can let go of the impatience and just be okay with being where I am now and putting one foot in front of the other and enjoying the work.
Yes.
It's and I think that this is one of the ways that you know that you're in your dip, doing your work, is that absent that outside pressure, the actual work itself is enjoyable.
Exactly. It's a great space to look at too, you know, the expectations that you're putting on yourself. And what am I, you know, with, and I totally get that space of, I like to move at like 100 miles an hour, basically. And I learned so much when I slow down, when I get patient, when I put a little more time into things, a little more thought. It's so worth it, and it's very easy for me to just be like, just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. I'm jumping in, I'm jumping in, I'm jumping in. You know, so it's like, okay, I got to find other spaces to jump in where jumping in works. And then it's interesting to notice too what things come up sometimes when you do jump in. You know, it's, and how do we get, I find too, if we can get to just being present, I'm really practicing this, being in just the present moment without bringing in kind of all my past stuff. Am I actually in this moment, or am I only thinking about the things from the past, or my future projections and, oh, this is where I want to be and this is what I want to do, and moving over that way? Just like, you know, just come back to right now. If I can just be right here, right now, then I can really enjoy here and now. I enjoy the work because I'm present and I love doing the work. But I find when I start to look, oh gosh, I'm looking back, I thought I'd be farther now, or, oh yeah, but I just want to get over here. I want to have everything done and ready. That also creates a little bit more of that kind of stress and anxiety and discomfort, unhappiness. But if I can remind myself, oh, where are you now, Georgie? All right, it's all like past thinking, future thinking. What if I can just come to right now? Right now, right now, right now. It's really helpful. Not easy, so I'm working on it, but it's definitely helpful. That's for sure.
I find too that right now thing is the trigger for me. It's the trigger for getting into flow.
Yes.
And I love that sense of flow that I get into with work, where I'm moving forward and it's challenging, just challenging enough, lose sense of time, and actually just kind of commit to the work. And that's what it requires, is the presence, to be not worried about what happened in the past, not looking to the future, just focusing on the work right here, right now. Let's just do it. And what I find is when I can do that, when I can be present, the work also moves faster. I can get so much more done in a day when I'm present.
So true.
And what feels slow.
Yes, such a good point. Okay, a few more comments here. Yes, the impatient with oneself makes it way worse. You two talking about slowing down and the benefit of that has been really helping also. Awesome. It's a good reminder for us as well.
Oh yeah, we live in such a sped up hustle, hustle, hustle kind of world. It's just, but that's not the pace of humanness.
Exactly. Before you make a big jump, we move backward briefly to make a bigger jump. Yeah. I recognize that I closed my last business because it was becoming average after being the best in my world for nearly 8 years.
Ah.
That's perfect. Such a great example to what you were talking about. Let's see. Sometimes I can think of a tiny thing to do and do it, but even thinking about a tiny thing without doing is still valuable. Yeah. And then, yes, with letting the business go, I was able to let it go without feeling guilty. I think that's such also a good way of knowing as well when the time has come to end something, is that you can walk away with it and it feels right. Like I did my thing, I had its run, and it's time for something different. It's time to either move it into a different direction or do something totally different. But there's absolutely that feeling of that journey is over. The dead end has been hit.
Yeah, that is one thing. I think back to when I was doing the computer work that I was doing. I really, really, really wish I had ended it on that day that I had my parking lot epiphany, where I went skipping out of that meeting, and it's like, yay, I made a sale, and then, oh shit, I had to write code. And it was like, in that moment, I knew I was done. And I ended up sticking it out for another 2-3 years. And it was grueling, and it was unfulfilling. And that is not what the dip feels like. That is something that is not the dip. Call it the ditch, call it something else. But that was not about moving through on a path to mastery. That was showing up every day to fulfill a commitment and being utterly average and not wanting to be there and being done with it and not putting my heart into it and all of this other stuff. I mean, if there is that one good part that came out of that, it was the discernment between what it feels like to really persevere and to finish something that isn't right versus the tough work that shows up in the dip. They're very, 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 very different. So I guess there was that value out of it, but I sure wish I had, I'd like to have those 3 years of my life back,
No doubt. Yeah, there's such a difference between just getting through it and getting it done just because I said I'd do it, so I just need to finish it, and then actually going through something challenging, but because you care about the work that you're doing. It's so, so very different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember, when I was, further back in my career, when I was into it, it was like I did a lot of really, really hard work to get good at what I did, and I enjoyed getting better, and I enjoyed the learning, and I enjoyed the frustration that came. Like, it's not easy work to do, and I enjoyed the frustration that came with it, and even the tediousness of it. Some days, there was an element of fulfillment in there that was just so gone. It's just absolutely astounding.
Yeah.
And it's not about the money, right? Like, it's not about the money. I loved doing some of that computer work when I was completely, utterly broke. And in that last contract, I was being paid,
Yeah.
It's like, there was money. That's why I stuck it out.
Yeah.
It was so not worth it.
exactly. Yeah, it's just like, oh gosh, make it end, make it end. And then you kind of just, I think too, you don't do your very best work, and we're looking
No.
for how can I just, what's the fastest way for me to do this, because I don't really want to be doing it at all.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking for just what's enough.
Yeah, exactly. What's enough? And you know, in the places where I ordinarily would push back, um, you know, because I maintain this kind of tension when I do my best work with my clients. Kind of pushing a little bit, right? It's so I want what's best for the project. I want what's best for the clients, and I push a little bit, and I lost that drive. It was
Yeah.
like the client would want something and it was stupid, and I'd be like, I don't care. I'm just going to do it because I don't have any argument. I don't want to argue this. And besides, if I win this argument, I'm going to have to work harder. And it's like all signs, you know, the work is going to be average.
Exactly.
You know, it's just,
Yeah, and then
that's
you
not
just
how I want to
feel
be.
crappier about yourself later too, and it's just like, oh, it's just like literally it's a no win all the way around.
Yep.
And like I said, great learnings that come out of it, and it's been nice to get, 3 years back.
Yeah.
And then, because when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets challenging too when you don't like the work and you like the people you're working for.
Yeah.
That's where I know I've been in that, like with the bookkeeping stuff, right? I'm like, oh gosh, I do not want to do this work, but I love my people, So it's like, so you're like, okay. I'm like, okay. And then so you sit down to do the work. It's like, oh gosh, okay. How quick can I get this done and out? That I love my people, and but when it's, and making the decision, it just feels right, feels good.
Yeah.
That's most definitely true.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have. We have an active chat today. I like it.
Awesome. Yeah, that was one of the other things that Seth said in the book. It's always a good decision if you're leaving that thing you're being average at and moving towards the thing that you're going to be exceptional at, right?
Yes.
So that's always a good decision.
So true. It's funny when I think about even when like having a bookkeeping company, the thing I loved most about the bookkeeping, every time I did like an intake with someone or whatever, I'm always like, so, what are your goals with this business? Why are you starting it? What do you want this business to do for you? What kind of life do you want to have that you're hoping this business can do for you? Okay, good. I know the goals now. Now we'll look at the numbers to make this happen, but it was always about this bigger picture kind of thing. So now I've been able to just ditch that numbers, boring data entry stuff, to just focus on the bigger pieces, which is cool. Very cool. Thanks again to both of you for sharing so many personal stories and very meaningful, relevant examples. Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Liking the people I work with, but not the work, is why I stayed several years after I should have left my last job. Felt great when I left that job, and still I am in touch with the people I like. Exactly. So often I think we think it's kind of all or nothing, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
We can kind of find those wins in it and make it work. Especially when we're present. If I'm always thinking about making up stories about what I think it's going to be like, and I'm stuck in past or future or whatever, when I'm in that sort of clear space, I can make really good decisions. I can look at, okay, what do I like about this? What do I want to keep? Oh yeah. But if I'm constantly running my BS stories, it's really, really challenging to get clarity. I only create more confusion. And in confusion, it's really hard. I can talk myself into a tailspin pretty quickly. No. So true. Such good share, really good sharing. I think it's nice to talk about things like this too, because often we don't talk about them. You know, we typically will hear kind of the sunshine and rainbows versions of things, but often we don't talk about the real struggles that happen when you're building your business. And it sometimes I think we think there's something wrong with us if it happens when we're doing work that we love. But I'm passionate about this, but I love it. I shouldn't be in this space. I shouldn't be wanting to quit. There must be something wrong with me. I especially don't want to tell someone that that's how I'm feeling. You know, so I think the more we can talk about these things that are absolutely normal, it helps. And then we can actually share information together. Oh, here's a good one for you. Are there different types of dips and or common stages to various dips?
All right, I'm going to show you something here. Just give me a second. I'm going to show you one specific dip.
Excellent.
This is from.
How about a Venn diagram for dips?
No, this is almost like a Venn diagram. This is stages of emotional change. You get to see that I've gotten. Oh, I just shared the wrong screen, didn't I? Oh no, there it is.
Oh no, there we go.
Do you see the orange?
Yep.
Thing? Okay, this is this is the emotional stages of change, and this is a specific kind of a dip. Could be for your business as a whole. Could be anything that you're looking to change. You can see the emotional states from happy to not happy, and there's this dip-shaped little thing here, right? And the stages are like this uninformed optimism. This is the high that we get when we have an idea. This is the journey of 1,000 steps. 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I know what I want. This is amazing. I have this great idea. This is going to be my business. This is the, I'm just launching my business. It's the idea stage. This is the exciting stage. This is the stage that a lot of us really love, especially if we're creative people. I know that this is my stage. It's uninformed optimism because you know what you want and you have this exciting idea and you believe it's possible, and it's like all of that mindset stuff. It's like, oh, it's so true. I believe it's possible. I'm committed. Yay, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Look at this end in mind. I built my vision board, right? Like it's that state. But you don't know what you're getting into. That's just the reality. It's like you have this idea and you think it's easier than it is. And a lot of marketers play up on this, and they tell you that it'll be easy, and they kind of build up on this uninformed optimism because in this stage you'll open your wallet. Okay, so uninformed optimism followed by just tumbling down into the bottom of the dip, informed pessimism. This is when you actually take those first few steps and you go, holy crap, this is harder. There's more things I don't like, I don't know. But this is the part where you go, oh, okay, I know what I don't know. I know what needs to be done. And when you look at the enormous list of what needs to be done, or you realize, wow, I want to climb a mountain, but I'm out of breath just climbing this small little hill at the end of my street. Or you go, wow, there's going to be a lot of work here. Or it's like, wow, those networking events aren't as easy as I thought they would be. Crap, that's 5 sales calls nobody's bought. All of it, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel stupid. It's this kind of place, right? But this is informed pessimism. It's at least you're pessimistic based on more of a reality because you've discovered what you don't know, right? And then coming out of this, you hit this kind of hopeful realism as you start to develop a few skills, put a little plan together, then you can start kind of pulling yourself out. So you start to see a little bit of upward progress, but you're still, at the, little baby steps. You're still in this dippy kind of place. And this is, I'm pretty sure this is the dip that Seth Godin is talking about. I think this maps really well. And then you have this informed optimism place where it's like, okay, I build up some skills. I know what I'm doing. I feel confident that I can do it. I've shown myself that I can learn. I've made some progress. I can do this. And you can see this is coming out of the dip, and then ultimately you get to this place of completion for your goal. But basically, this is emotional stages of change, and I can't remember the people who came up with this, but it's based on like actual experts mapping out this emotional stage change. So thanks for the question. There's a little diagram.
That's so good. Sounds like the first step could be a slide. Oh my God, that was like me this morning, literally. Like with I was telling Patty I'm doing this fit body boot camp thingy. Like, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna go check out this thing. It'll be good for my trip to Nepal. Blah 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 blah. And then I pull in the parking lot this morning. And I'm like, I think I'm just gonna go home. These people look more fit than me. I'm not even sure I can do this. What the hell was I thinking? This is ridiculous. And then do the workout. I'm like, oh, for the love of Jesus, what was I thinking? I'm not sure if I'll be able to walk tomorrow. But I'm back to hopeful optimism that persistence, maybe, 5-6 days a week was a little overly optimistic. Maybe I'll start with 3. But I'm like, oh my gosh, as you're describing it, I'm like, holy, I went through that this morning. Oh, it was just like a slide. So true, man. Yeah. It's amazing how quick I think sometimes we do when we get so excited. It's such a great idea. This is so amazing. And then we get into it and it's like, okay, all right, this is actually what this is going to take.
Yeah.
But and that's that space.
I remember that when I wrote my book.
Right? But it's worth it. And then when no, I know where I'm going. This is really important. Okay. Now I have a bit of a reality check of what this is going to take to get there. It's going to take longer. It's not going to be as easy. I'm going to probably have to do some more work, but okay. I'm in for that because where I'm going is I'm really committed to that and it's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah. I really love this emotional stages of change diagram. I love that slide. Somehow the slide makes it almost fun to go into the pessimistic place. Think about, oh, well, at least you get a slide down there. Whee! I am.
But it's like I look at that slide and I'm like, okay, that was me when I started writing my book because I'm like, oh, like I went into it like, oh, it's a book. It's like a really, really, really long blog post, right? Like it was just like that was my thought going in. I was just overly confident, figuring, oh, I can write blog posts, I can write a book. And then once I got into it, I realized, whoa, not so much. It actually is very, very, very different, and it's going to take a lot of hours and a lot of work. And it was just like that slide, like right down to the bottom, and it's like, do I really want to do this? Like that's where you start to question it. It's when you're sitting at the bottom there and you're going, do I really want to do this?
Yes. Let's see. It reminds me when I bought a digital piano without much training on how to play piano. I'm in a dip. This also makes me think of the kids' board game called Chutes and Ladders. The chutes for slides. Yeah, exactly. Someone's got to climb up the ladders. That's for sure. Yeah. It's such a great place of reflection, even when you think about like doing the book, right? Thinking, oh, I thought this was going to be so much easier. I know how to do this. And then you really get to that space of recognizing, do I want this? How bad do I want this? Like, yeah, okay, I want it. Yeah. And where you, I think for you too, it's such a great example of you care about the kind of book you put out. Like you could have got down there and went, oh yeah, this is too hard, but I said I'd do it. So let me just slap together some stuff I've already put and throw it up there and it'll be fine. But I think this is where it's where can I be exceptional? How do I do great quality work? Okay, I'm willing to sit here and suffer a little bit to create something exceptional.
Yeah. And then that's kind of, I think that's a really big piece of it, right? And I don't know that this is true for everybody, right? Sample size of one.
Yeah.
Although I really like what Iman said last week about if there's one of me, there's a million of me, is that sure, you can shortcut these processes, right? You know, I had transcripts. I could have taken a zillion transcripts and slammed it between two covers, and I could say, hey, I have a book. But that was the goal wasn't to have a book. The goal was to write a book. It's very, very different. It's a different goal. I will contend that it's a different goal. If the goal is to have a book, you can pay a ghostwriter. You don't have to do any of the paying. But for me, paying a ghostwriter would not mean that I wrote a book. And I don't care how much they tell me it's my content and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't wash for me. For someone else, they might make an entirely different decision. But my goal was to write a book, to actually be the person who wrote the book. So it's, I think that this is a piece of it too, right? Mm-hmm. It's like when you're looking at these dips and choosing what dips are going to be the worthwhile dips.
Exactly. Yeah, and a great point, right? It's the clarity of the goal for you. Mm-hmm. So important. So important. This has been a good, lively discussion this morning. I like it. I like it. It's interesting how like I said, we do kind of have a theme this week, which we didn't really plan on the theme, but we have a theme. We could have said we planned it, and that's not the truth. So we didn't. And it seems to work like this. So.
And I think that this is going to be an ongoing theme that we continue to revisit because this is reality.
Yes.
You know, the more we talk, the more we do these things, the more I realize that we're both kind of fans of reality.
Yeah.
It's you know, it is the reality. That the dip is the reality. Hard work is the reality. Not feeling like it is the reality. Having bad weeks, having bad days is reality. And I'm not sure that the answer for all of that is to kind of paint it with sparkles and say, oh, just think happy thoughts. I'm not convinced that's the answer.
No, I think the more we can actually share the reality of what this looks like, the more we move through the dips too. Yeah. And the less we feel like we're the only one feeling like this, maybe I can't do it, because our self-confidence can take a huge beating when we feel like we're in the dip and we feel like we're the only one that's there. No one else has ever been there. Everyone else is building 7-figure business and launching online courses overnight, and everything's going so great, and I can't even sit here and write a social media post. Like, what the heck? So I think the more we can just make this really practical, really real, really this is what it looks like, I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, and not from the perspective of, yeah, it's really hard, you might as well quit. Like it's not that. It's just this acknowledgement that, yeah, it is really hard. That's what you signed up for, and it's fine, and it's expected.
Yeah, you have those days.
We have those days, and we work through them, and we show up on the other side, and things will get better, and all this other stuff, right? Like,
exactly.
It's reality.
Yeah, it takes, there's both sides of it. Some days you're like, yeah, I'm crushing it. This is amazing. I'm awesome. And then you're on the slide. Woohoo! Not so much.
Yeah. I think there probably is, like, I like, this shows like a dip like this, right? I think it looks more like this.
Yeah.
The roller coasters, and up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. I think it's probably up and down, up and down, up and down, going up.
Yes.
It's more like that, right? Like, I don't think that it's a single event.
Exactly. I would agree with that. Let's see. Back
Hard work is so rewarding. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you are in informed pessimism, we realize what it takes to be exceptional. So then when you climb out of the dip, you can be exceptional. Totally.
I heard a great quote. Can't remember who said it, but find out the price of success and then be willing to pay it.
Yes.
And I think that's it. It's almost like a purchase decision is you find out what that price of success is, right? Like when you have that informed pessimism list of stuff that you have to do. Okay, here's the price of success. Am I willing to pay it? Knowing that it's okay to say, no, I'm not.
Exactly.
If you're not willing to pay it, then bail out for sure. That's the good time to quit. Because otherwise you're wasting your time and your effort and your energy. Are you willing to pay that price or not? And I think a lot of times we don't actually stop to consider that question.
No, we don't. Absolutely. Or that it's even an option that we can say, no, I'm not willing to pay that price.
Yeah.
Because I already said I was going to do it. And I was all excited and I told everybody. And then when I actually look at it, I guess I better. Like I'm not even sure we often consider, I'm not willing to do this, an option.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the informed pessimism. Like I think you're there.
Yeah.
When you know. It's informed.
It's informed, yes.
I think sometimes we avoid that. I think we avoid looking at that.
Exactly. I think we're almost taught that it's wrong, that there's something wrong with us. We're supposed to be happy, joyful, optimistic all the time. We're not supposed to hit that space.
Yeah.
And that's unrealistic too. So good. So good. Well, I know I've really appreciated all of the engagement from the chat. It's really awesome when we get feedback, when you have questions, when we can make this somewhat interesting format into an actual dialogue is really, really awesome. It increases the connection when it's like that, where we feel like we're not just kind of talking to each other or to the out there. So definitely appreciate the engagement for sure. And then we will be back on Wednesday, and I will share some tips on how to stay focused when you are feeling absolutely bored and you don't want to do it. How can we do it when we don't want to, basically?
more pulling yourself out of the dip stuff.
Yeah. Here we go. Exactly.
Oh. All right.
Awesome. Perfect. So we will see everybody back here on Wednesday.
Same bad time.
Same bad channel.
All right. Bye now.
Bye. Have a great day.